The Bill of Rights declares in part, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. The Eighth Amendment of the United States Constitution. The Mask of Tim Kimble is based on a true story. My true story. The rough draft was performed one keystroke at a time from the front seat of my 2011 Ford Focus throughout 2023. It's the final book of the trilogy series, and it's a tale of two stories. The manuscript plunges into my earliest childhood memories, growing up in the 7th Shire Project, where my personality was structured. I understand a thing or two about feeling alone in a room full of people. I was a late bloomer, constantly behind my classmates in maturity. I became the black sheep of my family, ridiculed at every turn by my mom, suffering from Munchausen syndrome by proxy. The first 10 chapters painfully scroll through the atrocities committed by most adults in my life at the commissioning of those who are supposed to protect me. Mom placed me in positions of molestation by her younger sister, physical and psychological maltreatment by her affair-turned-husband JB, and extreme mental harm that she was known for. Dad and his second household, with LC and her 2 kids, were the double dose of rejection from my upbringing with blatant deprivation by many family members circumambient the situation. Here is the novella overview. The introduction is an original journal entry written in February of 1997. Other than names being altered and initialed, with a few grammatical corrections, it's a direct quote from the record, a mere snapshot of the abusive home life under the oppressive thumbs of circumstance. I changed the perspective from the storyteller of third person to first person. My third book is dedicated to a lifelong and loving best friend. Thank you for unwavering support throughout my life, whether it's deserved or not. Kimble narrates relevant experiences from his pre-divorce childhood straight through college, relating to the world spiraling out of control around him. Chapter 3, Tyrant Heights, excerpt pages 53 and 54. I was holding a plate of Mom's nasty, doughy, homemade pizza returning from the kitchen when I tripped on my youngest brother's mechanical swing, startling him and causing him to cry. I sat down, not thinking it was a big deal. Jesus Christ, JB yelled out loud. I drew a big breath and pointed my finger towards his direction across the dinner table. You're not supposed to say that blasphemy, I retorted. I looked down to grab the slice of pizza and was met with an incredibly hard man punch right in my face. It connected in such a way that I saw nothing but black and bright stars for several seconds. My surroundings were silent, only listening to the severe ringing in my ears while the outside noise slowly started filtering back in. When I recovered enough to understand where I was, I had JB pinned up against his living room recliner with a fork pressed up against his neck. Mom was shouting in a whiny voice while I lowered my arm and bolted out the front door. I had no shoes on, running across the street with snow up to my mid-calf, while Mom continued to yell at me through the front door. I was on my way to Granny's backyard shop to start the heater and spend the night. Andy's dad was a county sheriff's deputy. He heard the commotion, peeked out the window, and did nothing. My feet were already numb, so I walked back to the open garage and stood at the back door, dropping the fork on the concrete. Mom ripped the door open to discover me standing there and told me to go to my bedroom. I woke the following morning with more sunlight shining through the basement windows than usual. I find out they held me out of school for the day after looking in the mirror at the black and swollen right eye and split lip. I was gaslighted by being told I was unmanageable, and they were considering shipping me off to a reform compound to straighten me out. This scare tactic worked, as I was ashamed to tell anyone what happened, let alone ask for help. Besides, who was I going to tell? I basically was raising you 3 boys on my own with no help from anyone. Your dad was too busy partying and having girlfriends, one after the other. I finally had enough and ended it when I met JB. I know he was hard on you boys, but think about it. He went from single to married with 3 kids, a wife, little brother on the way, and all the bills. No help from your dad or any money from him. Mom's deflecting responsibility in a 2014 direct message to me. I was able to obtain a full-ride scholarship as the sports editor for the college's newspaper, the Southwestern Silhouette, despite the negative self-doubt my home life tried to instill. I soon after secured a paying position at a local television news network as a graphic designer. The very weekend before I was to start working my dream job, I got caught up in criminal activities, and it's from this precarious perception where this novel manifests roots from. I was thrust at the fork in the road, off in a direction with devastating results. The novella splits at chapter 11, jumping ahead nearly 20 years, bookending the previous 2 novels. My family was split apart by a jealous ex-husband using the state of Colorado as an enforcer to threaten my freedom. My wife and I were arrested for multiple felony charges with a $25,000 bond each. Our children were kidnapped by Child Protective Services a month prior and handed over to her ex-husband, which was the original welfare check caller, and despite only being the father of 1 child. The over 30 days in county jail eliminated our employment, living arrangements, and possessions. Bail, which is basic to our system of law, is excessive and in violation of the 8th Amendment when it is set at a figure higher than an amount reasonably calculated to ensure the asserted government interest. The issue of bail is implicated when there is a direct government restraint on personal liberty. The fixing of bail for any individual must be based upon standards relevant to the purpose of assuring their presence. Unless this right to reasonable bail before trial is preserved, the presumption of innocence would lose its meaning. The detective in my case fabricated evidence, coerced witnesses, and ignored the facts to patch statements together, flat out lying to obtain a judge's signature for an arrest warrant. He tracked down a missionary couple at their home that visited us in jail to contrive a story that we only fed the baby boy a half a jar of baby food daily. The prosecutor's office strategized with the court advocates against my bail reduction, restoration of my family, and rejected plea agreement offers from both of our attorneys, despite us committing no crime. The judge refused me a bond reduction after more than 30 days in jail, claiming to have nothing to hang her hat on. My wife's bond was reduced by half. An immunity proffer was extended on the condition she testify against me. Stack v. Boyle. The United States Supreme Court found a $50,000 bail to be excessive given the defendant's limited financial resources and lack of evidence that they were a flight risk. This traditional right to freedom before conviction permits the unhampered preparation of a defense and serves to prevent the infliction of punishment prior to conviction. Unless this right to bail is preserved, the presumption of innocence, secured only after centuries of struggle, would lose its meaning.